All right, that was a fun one. Eagles 3-0, off to a really hot start this season.
Yeah, and it's interesting. They're jumping on teams early and maybe not finishing as strong, but they haven't needed to. Made a little hairy in Detroit on opening weekend, but certainly a lot to be really encouraged by. And again, you look around the league, and the Chiefs lost. The number of undefeated teams is dropping. Bills lost, and that number could go down even more before week 3 is over. So Eagles are in rarefied territory at 3-0. And, you don't want to get ahead of yourselves, but they're in a very, very good spot and playing some really intriguing football on both sides of the ball.
They are. They win this one 24-8. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan. He's Ruben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. We're going to get into all of it. We'll talk about the defensive line performance, 9 sacks in this game. They really beat up our old buddy Carson Wentz. We'll talk about Jalen Hurts' performance, Devontae Smith with the career game, and we will look at the ends of these games and if there's anything to be concerned about with the way they're finishing them. But Ruby mentioned it, big picture. This team's 3-0, and I mean, expectations are already pretty high. They're only rising from here, right?
Yeah, no doubt. And I think what's so interesting is that, I mean, we kind of knew they were going to be really good on offense. I mean, they had all the weapons. They had a quarterback who was ascending. And, I think what they're doing on defense, I mean, the last 2 games, holding back-to-back teams under in single digits, really been eye-opening, and especially coming off Detroit and what the defense is doing. So we talk a lot about complementary football, and they're doing that. They're playing well at the same time on both sides of the ball. The offense and defense are setting each other up, and when they do that, they're really hard to beat. And you look at the NFC, and I mean, we'll kind of take stock later in the week once all the week 3 games are over, but I mean, who's better than them? I guess, the Packers still have an all-time great quarterback, and as long as they do, they're certainly a threat. But, I mean, the Eagles are as good as anyone. And through 3 weeks, it's hard to say they're not.
Yeah, and all of a sudden that Lions win keeps looking better and better. That was a team that we thought might not be very good, and they've at least played pretty tough here through 3 weeks. Overall, I mean, yes, expectations are high, and I feel like throughout the whole offseason, it was tempered expectations, right? It was, well, on paper they look pretty good, but let's see them on the field. Through 3 games, I've been thoroughly impressed by what we've seen, and this is a legitimate contender in the NFC.
Yeah, other than the second half defensively against Detroit, I mean, they're jumping on people and they're finishing them, and you can nitpick. They're not scoring, late in games, but when you're up 24, it's not like you're going to panic about it. And I think what we've seen from Jalen, what we've seen from the receivers, what we've seen, at least in the first 2 games, from the running game, the corners, I mean, it's like the entire team has come of age at the same time. And they're not weak anywhere. They have. That's
the thing. Like, normally you have a team and you're like, and it would have been safety here, but the safeties have played all right. I guess it's still the weakest part of the team, but like, no, I mean, look at that team on paper. Go through the depth chart and you go, no, this is a stacked roster.
Yeah, and safety is probably the one position where you kind of look at and say, well, they could be better there. But again, you have one guy who just got here and seems to be played a little better each week. Mm-hmm. He had a penalty today, but I don't know. I don't really know what else you could ask for 3 weeks in with a young quarterback, still a second-year coach. And as you're looking at the quarterbacks they face, they're in a stretch where they face 7 consecutive quarterbacks. Today was the first of 7 who've never won a playoff game. And a real chance to build on that record, because this is a team that's really confident. They're healthy for the most part, very healthy. They're loaded on both sides of the ball, and you don't want to play them right now.
All right, Rube, let's kind of look at this game in particular, the defensive line. We were kind of waiting on a performance like this. Those guys feasted today.
Yeah, and you really sense that their familiarity with, or the team's familiarity with Carson was a real advantage. They know he's going to hold on to the ball and try to make a play. You can't coach him out of that, and even as the sacks kept adding up, he didn't change the way. I mean, he was taking 7-step drops. And he was standing there with the ball, and he wouldn't get rid of it and wouldn't throw it away. He finally adjusted in the second half. The game was over by then. So I think they really had they knew how he was going to play, and they took advantage of that. And they were relentless, and it was a lot of different guys too. Now that was, I think, what made them so dangerous and so effective. We saw Reddick finally get off the schneid, get in there, get some pressure. Fletch continued, especially in the first half. I thought he generated a ton of pressure. He had a sack and a half. BG, he turned the clock back, man. He was 2.5 sacks, the second most he's ever had. Half a sack behind. He had 1 3-sack game early in his career, but TJ Edwards had pressure from the linebacker spot. I thought Gannon blitzed early just to kind of show it and put it out there, and then the front guys did the rest. It was impressive. Hargrave finally kind of got going a little bit. It was everybody. Sweat was in there. They were all in there. Patrick Johnson got some pressure. So that's a lot of guys. I mean, look, Washington's O-line is not good, and they're banged up, and Eagles took advantage. So that was good to see, because haven't had a game like that in a long, long time.
Yeah, just watching Carson in the pocket, it's like the same old thing with him. The pocket presence is non-existent. And some of the guys, I mean, they were getting real wide with their rushes and then coming up from behind him and sacking him. So, I mean, when you give good players like that 3-4 seconds to get sacks, they're going to get them against a line that's not that good. And you give credit to the coverage too. Weren't guys open. I mean, it was just Carson deciding, I'm going to try to hold on to the ball until the very last second, and it's not going to work when you have guys covered downfield. The pass rush is getting there. It's funny. Nick Sirianni said he thought Hassan Reddick was close, and he made sure, as Hassan was getting interviewed in the locker room after, Sirianni walks by and just yells, "I told you he was close." And it's funny, those are fun games, and everyone will tell you sacks don't matter until they get 9 sacks in the game.
Right.
They're game-changing plays, and especially the strip sacks. BG had the strip sack. That one was lost. Carson's a little loose with the football at times, and they made him pay for it.
I think Reddick had one as well, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Had a forced fumble, but Carson. I don't want to get too much into Carson because who cares? But this will always limit him. I mean, he's 30 now. He's in his 7th year. He's obviously got a big arm. He's a really good athlete, not the athlete he used to be, but he'll never be able to lead a team deep in the postseason because I don't think he'll ever change the way he is. And, I've never been a Carson hater. I like Carson. He's done a lot of good things in the league. The Eagles don't win the thing in 17 without him, but how can you be in your 7th year and not quite? I was sitting next to Jaws, who was played 17 years. How can you be in your 7th year and still make those same mistakes? It's kind of mind-boggling. Once you're sacked 3 straight plays, don't you kind of say, you know what? Maybe I should get rid of the ball sooner. But fell into the Eagles' hands, and they had tied the 4th most sacks they've ever had in a game. So.
Yeah, it was impressive, and it was everyone getting after him.
Everyone.
You mentioned, Fletcher.
Everyone but Matt Leo, Dave. I thought Matt Leo had a shot.
If this is the version of Fletcher they're going to get all year, watch out. I mean, that's a game changer because we weren't really sure what to expect. He came on strong toward the end of the last season, but you look at his age, you look at a player like him, the way he's played for as long as he's played, and you think, man, I don't know how much this guy's going to be able to give you. He's playing at such a high. He already has 3 sacks through 3 games. He had 3.5 all last season.
Yeah, he's right there. Half a sack fewer than last year. And he hasn't really – he had 6.5 the year before. I think he had a couple the year before that. He's playing – look, he's not the Fletcher of old, but I feel like he's playing better now than he has in a few years.
Mm-hmm.
And look, it's 3 games, so you don't want to go too crazy, but they released him. I mean, he was a free agent for a while. He's playing way, way beyond my expectations. And He's only 31. I believe he's 31. But like you've said, he's played a lot of football, played a lot of snaps,
and he's played through. I mean, he's played through every kind of injury. I don't think he gets enough credit for how tough he is. By the way,
that's
kind of an aside. That dude plays through everything. I remember a few years ago, I was bugging him about some kind of injury, and he just looked at me and goes, "Look, I'll tell you if I'm not playing." He's like, "I'm playing unless I really can't. Then but I'm playing," and he does. He plays every game.
Yeah, and I give him credit for getting into shape that has allowed him to play like this. And he said during I think it was during training camp, he said, "I can still take over a game." We all kind of rolled our eyes, that's Fletch, but he has been terrific. And I thought the first game, I think he did have half a sack, but I don't think he played great against the Lions. Really, nobody did on defense except maybe Kaiser White. But last 2 games, Fletch has been a beast. He's been the Fletch of old almost. Yeah,
it's fun to watch, and it's something we weren't sure if we'd see again. So it's been good. Just about everyone on that line. I don't want to forget anyone. Josh Sweat had great rushes. Even Jordan Davis had a great pass rush where he batted the ball down in Wentz's face. I mean, it was every single player who got on that line today made a difference. Yeah, and they have good depth in that group, and we saw it. And, you contrast that with Washington. It's got 3 really, really good defensive linemen, but they don't have depth, and you see the difference. Yeah, and we saw the Eagles kind of go tempo a little bit because they know that they don't have that depth, and they're without Chase Young and Casey Toohill, so they're missing some guys too. Chase Young, Casey Toohill. I like how you just throw those two together. Well, they're 2 best pass rushers, Yeah, Casey Toohill, former Eagles draft pick. Yeah, I mean, seeing Fletch, when's the last time Fletch and BG combined for 4 sacks in a game? It was like going back to 2017 here. It was good stuff. Yeah, you always know BG's going for the football too. Yeah. Yeah, we've seen him do that before. Have we? But yeah. Yeah, that just reminded me of that, just seeing that play. And that's something that's relatively new in football. Guys didn't used to do that. I mean, all you do is knock the ball out of the guy's hands. You get a sack, you get a forced fumble, you might get the ball back. I think 10 years ago, guys weren't really doing that. They were just trying to sack the quarterback. It's like one motion now. It's go for the sack, but you're going for the football too. Those are huge plays. Yeah. Huge plays. Yeah, they are. Now the important thing is that, they have to keep that up. I mean, there's been times the Eagles have had big sack games. Last year they had 6 against the Lions, but they only had like 10 the rest of the year. It's only 11 the rest of the year. So it was encouraging, but they've got to keep that going. And it wasn't just the sacks either. I mean, there were some hard hits on Wentz. I feel like they shook him enough where, some of the throws he was making were kind of off target and he was sailing balls. I think he was seeing ghosts a little bit. Yeah, we've seen that before. The official book has the Eagles with 17 quarterback hits. Jeez. Including 5 for BG, 3 for Sweat, 2 for Fletch, 2 for TJ Edwards, 2 for Patrick Johnson, 1 for Hargrave. So I mean, this might be blasphemy, but it was like an old-time Reggie, Clyde, Jerome type game. That was that kind of pressure. It was relentless. And you mentioned earlier that Gannon blitzed. A lot of that game, he didn't need to. Yeah, exactly. He just didn't need to. And he showed it early to get it out there. And then there were times where he would dial one up, but that's such a beautiful thing if you're a defensive coordinator to have your front get after the quarterback like that, and you don't feel like you need the blitz. It takes so much pressure off of the caller. Yeah, and you just can deploy so many more resources into coverage, which they did, and until the very end when he started getting garbage yards. I mean, Carson was like 107 yards passing going into the 4th quarter. Yeah. So, yeah, Gannon. We got to talk about Gannon a little bit. I know he's not in the budget, but just since we're talking defense, I mean, 2 straight weeks they pretty much shut down maybe not an elite quarterback, but certainly a veteran professional quarterback with some weapons, and done what they had to do. They've done it in different ways. Last week it was takeaways. This week it was sacks. Yeah, just big plays. You just need big plays. And the fun thing here is I thought it was an aggressive plan, and it allows you to be aggressive when the front's getting there. But they did play plenty of man coverage. They made Carson hold on to the football. And this is a key because they're playing a lot of Kirk Cousins, Carson Wentz's this year. A lot of middle-of-the-pack quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, because last year it was like they were either playing slop or they were playing Hall of Famers. And this year, so many of their quarterbacks are in that middle ground. And if they're aggressive against those middle ground quarterbacks, which they should be, they have the talent to do that, then I think we're going to see games like this.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they face Rodgers. How many elite quarterbacks do they face other than Aaron Rodgers?
I mean, maybe Dak at the end of the year if he's elite.
I don't know if Dak the second game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I wrote this back in the spring. We didn't know who's going to be starting. Like for the Steelers, still don't. It might be Pickett by the time they face him. Might be
either way.
Might be Heineke by the time they face Washington the second time. But yeah, I mean, there's no other than Rodgers. There's no Mahomes out there. There's no Derek Carrs out there. There's no Brady's, and you look down the list of the top quarterbacks in the league, and Jalen Hurts is right at the top of that list right now. You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we've got everything from your turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store at nissanusa.com today.
All right, Rube, let's talk about the offense a little bit. Jalen Hurts, another really good performance. Not quite to the incredible level we saw on Monday night, but still a very, very good performance. 22 for 35, 340 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, quarterback rating of 123.5.
Yeah, and did a lot of things really well. Different kind of game than last week. He threw the ball deep, man. How many deep balls did Shane dial up? It was wild. I mean, I think that puts so much pressure on a defense and opens up the field because that's a weapon for him now. I mean, I think Jalen had 5 completions of 30 yards or more. 2 long ones to Devontae, a long one to Grant Calcaterra, 1 long one to A.J. Brown, and then one to a 31-yarder to A.J. Brown as well. So a lot of different guys getting involved. Devontae was unbelievable, just some crazy catches. I don't know exactly. I like the fact that Jalen didn't really – I mean, I don't mind him running when he needs to run. But today was really – he didn't really do it. He scrambled a couple times at the end to keep the clock moving. But he really didn't have any big runs. His longest run was 5 yards.
But didn't need to.
He didn't need to, and he won this game with his arm. I think that's what I really liked about it. I don't feel like he has to throw touchdown passes to be a winner. But today – completed 63% of his passes, 340 yards, 3 touchdowns, and again, no turnovers. He got 1 turnover in 3 games, and it wasn't his fault. Really wasn't his fault. I just thought he's playing with so much command of the offense. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I love how he's doing whatever he needs to do in that game to win, to make winning plays, whether it's running 10 times for first downs or chucking it 35 times for 340 yards. He's making winning plays, winning decisions. He's accurate. He's keeping the ball out of harm's way. He's using his weapons. He's getting it down the field. He's making quick decisions. You compare him to Carson, which it's impossible not to. He replaced Carson, and he just gets rid of the ball so much quicker. And he didn't used to, but he does now. And he's 24.
Yeah. His release got quicker, by the way.
Yeah, it really did. It really did. And I think that's something he worked on. Mm-hmm. And on a day where they couldn't really run the ball, which surprised me a little bit. They weren't able to get the running game going. They won a game with Jalen's arm.
Yeah. And before this game, William Jackson ruled out, so Rashad Wildgoose had to play, and they targeted him. That's smart football. They went right after the guy who had to get a spot start and got a big DPI on him earlier. They went after his way. And the cool thing about Jalen Hurts in this game, he called that touchdown play at the end of the first half. And it was a play that it's 4th down. They can't stop the clock. it's about to be halftime. They just have to go with the play. He called one that wasn't in the game plan. It's basically a jump ball to Devontae, and he pulls it down. I mean, think about that when you're talking about his command of this offense and just being in total control. Calling that play that goes for a touchdown. I mean, that illustrates just how in sync he is with this offense right now.
Yeah, and how in sync he is with his teammates. And, we talk so much all off season. Jalen's in California throwing with AJ and Devontae and Quez. He's in Florida throwing with these guys. It pays off. I mean, there's a reason for it, and he trusts them. He trusts AJ and Devontae to come down with a contested ball, and Quez and Dallas, and they're doing it on a consistent basis. And he's fearless out there with these guys, and that was really wild to watch because you could just see him on making it up as he went along, and he's got such a good feel for the offense and for his teammates. I guess that's what I mean by just command of the offense. I think he's in a place where he's seeing things in such a more advanced way than a year ago, and we're seeing it manifest itself on the field.
Yeah, it was a really impressive performance. Let's talk about Devontae. Gosh, what a game. I mean, what a half. Forget the game. What a half. I mean, he had 154 yards at the half. He ends up with 169. Just a masterful.
156 at halftime. And I only say that because I know you would correct me if I got
no, you're right. It's 156 as he had the 2-yard touchdown.
Got you.
But 169 for the game.
Yeah.
Incredible game. And this is, some people were worried in week 1 when he didn't have a catch. No reason to be worried about this guy.
He handled that so well, and he's such a mature kid. And he's a physical player at that size. And I think that's the thing that really jumps out at you. He looks like he should be just kind of a finesse guy, a speed guy, but he mixes it up in there, and he doesn't mind going up in traffic and coming down. He landed on that one. I mean, he landed on his back, and that couldn't have been real pleasant. But he was back out there, caught the touchdown, I think, a few plays later.
Yeah. He tried to not leave the field.
Yeah.
He knocked the wind out of himself. He's bent over, and he's trying to stay out there. And no, get off the field. He caught his breath. He comes back in and catches the touchdown.
He's 23. I mean, he's 23. You talk about how A.J. Brown has helped him, and I think he's helped him in a couple ways. He's helped him. I think it's got to be great for Devontae just to be around him and see how he does his job. And, he's a veteran. He's a professional. But just drawing coverage away. And he caught some contested balls, but there were some where he was open, and he's open because teams are rolling their coverage. I would. A.J. Brown's out there. So pick your poison. If they roll it the other way, now A.J. Brown's open. You can't cover all these guys. This is, you think about where the Eagles wide receiving core was 2 years ago, and Greg Ward and Travis Fulgham and Jalen
That's what
Reagor.
we were joking about up here. Carson's got to be looking at the other sideline like, what the heck, guys?
Now
I was out here with Bryce Treggs and Dorial Green Beckham.
Yeah. I always wonder how Donovan feels seeing these kind of weapons. He played his whole career. I mean, he had Macklin and Deshaun at the very end, but he played most of his career with, Charles Johnson, Torrance Small, and James Thrash, and Todd Pinkston.
The one time they finally got him a receiver, he goes to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and then loses his mind, goes crazy, but that's another story. But yeah, Devontae, I said this on the postgame show, and Jaws agreed with me, so I felt validated that he reminds me of Mike Quick just on those sideline catches. And the one, he never got his left foot down.
And bad job by Ron Rivera.
Terrible job. And great job by Nick Sirianni. They had a play ready.
Yep.
They rushed to the line of scrimmage. They got everybody set, which isn't easy to do when you're rushing like that. And it didn't matter what the play. They ended up getting 2 yards to Goddard. That didn't matter because now you got 42 yards when you really shouldn't have gotten any. And that's really good coaching to be ready for that scenario.
And awful by Rivera. Who cares if you lose a timeout? Throw the flag.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're the Eagles, if you end up having a false start, well, it's worth it to to try to get those 40 yards. That was 40 free yards they got because Nick Sirianni outcoached Ron Rivera on a replay. I thought that was terrific.
Yeah. It was a great play. And I mean, how many catches did Devontae have that are like he has no right coming down with the football. He's 170 pounds. Like it's unbelievable. He's so tough, and I think everyone, we all remember when he came out, and everyone's going, he might be too skinny. So many questions at the combine were about his weight, if teams want him to get heavier and all this and that. He's so tough. It just doesn't matter. And he can take hits. He gets back up. His body control is next level. He's so much fun to watch.
Yeah, and you look at this wide receiving core. I mean, Howie, you got to give Howie a lot of credit for getting these guys here. Creative.
Yeah, and I don't want to forget, A.J. Brown still had 5 for 85 and a touchdown. It's not like it was all Devontae.
No, they combined for 254 yards and 13 catches. That doesn't happen. When's the last time Eagles had two receivers combined for 254 yards?
Something tells me we'll know that by tomorrow.
Yeah, it was probably Deshaun and Macklin, unless it was like, Kevin Curtis with that 221 against the Lions, and like Reggie Brown with like 12 or something. But yeah, and I mean, Jalen is so lucky to have those guys, but also he's, and he's so close with both of them, and they have such a synergy among them.
Yeah. Even Quez didn't have a catch, but he had his one target ended up drawing a DPI. A
big play, yeah.
Yeah. There should be a way for those to count in the stats somehow.
I'm sure Torrey Smith would like that.
Yeah, we were joking about Torrey that year. I mean, how many times he told, I keep getting dragged down.
The whole story on his specialty that year was drawing. Yeah. Somehow I actually looked up he led the league in pass interference yards that year. He had a real flair for it, real knack for it. So,
and Quez, look, if you're as fast as Quez, there are going to be times where someone's beat and they just grab him.
Yeah,
those count. Those yards count.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt like Quez made a difference today, even though he didn't catch a pass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What did you think about the Batman cape?
I did not see the Batman cape.
Yeah, so apparently it's going to be a running theme with this team. Whenever one of those guys scores, the cape comes on. A.J. Brown said he bought it on Amazon for $9.99.
He probably, knowing Amazon, he probably ordered it in the second quarter and it arrived in the third quarter.
He could have. That's how quick it could have gotten here. Kind of fun. Look, and it's silly. I get it, but it kind of gives me 2017 vibes, which just how much fun that team had and like the celebrations. When things are rolling like this, it ends up being a lot of fun, and that's kind of the first taste of that we've seen with this team.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I think there's a lot of swagger on this team. There's a lot of personality, whether it's AJ, Slay. Hurts has swagger in his own way.
And so does Devontae, even as quiet as he is. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys that bring that kind of energy, and it seems like a very close knit team and. Bunch of good guys. There's no me guys. At least there certainly doesn't seem to be any. There's a really good vibe. Locker room, on the field, practice. I really feel like Nick's message gets through to them about, all the stupid cliches that we hear like 100,000 times a year. Whether it's 1% better each day, focus on the next play. Your feet are on the ground. All those dog mentality, they resonate with these guys, and it doesn't matter if everyone else laughs at them. The players believe in that stuff and they live it, and they're really focused. And that's impressive stuff.
Yeah, and look, we obviously know it's easier to be like that as a team when you're winning, and we'll see what happens when they inevitably lose a game. But for now, you don't know. You calling a 17-0?
I'm not calling it, but I'm still at 3-0. It's possible.
There's a non-zero chance.
They're 18% of the way there.
That's true. How do you feel about the way they finished games? I guess if we're obviously being nitpicky here. They were up 24-0. They finished this game 24-8. Second game in a row now where they haven't done anything offensively in the second half.
Yeah, and defensively in the first game, they fell apart in the second half. They've been outscored 20 – man, my notes. Where's my notes? Here we go, 29-14 in the second half. They've outscored their opponents 72-21 in the first half, and they've been outscored 29-14 in the second half. It's a concern. Not a huge concern, I don't think, but it's a concern. Against a good team, you got to be able to finish. You got to play 60 minutes. They don't play that many good teams. So, they've gotten away with it. Nick said he didn't feel like he got too conservative. I think it didn't help that they couldn't run the ball today, which surprised me. I thought they'd be able to run the ball against Washington. The first two games, they've been able to keep the chains moving by running it. They couldn't do that today. So you ended up not really – he only threw a few times in the second half. I love that fourth down call at the end. That took some guts right there to AJ. But I don't know. I'm not super concerned about it. I think it's tough to call the game when it's 24-2 the same way as when it's, scoreless.
Yeah, and you're not going to. You're just not. And, I mean, I know it didn't happen, but that one deep ball to A.J. Brown, they complete that.
Yeah.
This looks completely different. And even in the last game, they had a field goal blocked in the second half. That throw to Quez on a rope on the left sideline it didn't count, and that was in the second half. So, I'm seeing things in the second halves of these games that aren't resulting in points, but are still good. You know what I mean? And I think that over time, they're going to be able to score from them.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree. And, defensively, you drop everyone back when you build a big lead. I'm sure the defense would have liked to pitch it would have been a defensive shutout because the safety is on the offense. But, it's really hard to complain about a 24-8.
Is this my negativity corner now? This is our first negativity corner?
I think it might be. I think it might qualify. Yeah, it might.
I have one for you. That Zach Pascal jet sweep, fired into the sun.
Yeah, wasn't crazy about that play. Not in that situation.
Yeah. I mean, no one should think on fourth down we need a couple yards. Let's get Zach Pascal horizontal. That's not,
Yeah, I understand what he was thinking. He was thinking, well, they're stacking the middle of the box. There's no room there. Roll out Jalen. And Nick's answer was, well, Jalen had a keeper on the previous play, I think. He ran 17 times on opening day. So, just get the first down. Use your best player. Keep the ball in his hands.
Yeah. What else? I mean, that's nitpicky. Yeah. Anything else I can give you is nitpicky. I thought all around this was a very good game. Covey had the punt muff, but I'll tell you what, the wind was taking that ball. That had some weird spin on it.
Was it?
Yeah, I looked at the wind right after that play. The goalpost flag was straight that way. So I think it just caught the wind, and I didn't have a chance to see him after the game. I'm guessing that's what happened. What do you think about Devontae Smith? What do you think about Devontae Smith returning a punt? Do you like that or no?
I wouldn't make it a regular thing.
Yeah.
But here and there.
Here and there, high leverage situation.
High leverage, I like that. I like that kind of talk. Yeah, I'm okay with it here and there.
Okay.
Okay with it.
That was his first one in his career. He didn't do it at all last year.
Interesting. I didn't realize that. Your boy Aaron Siposs had another big game.
Well, a couple of those punts ended up being touchbacks.
Well, he had 4 inside the 20 out of 6 punts. And the one, I know the first one was a called touchback. The one from their own 40-something.
Okay.
At least he's striking the ball well, and he seems confident. Yeah. I mean, like you've said, the big test will come when the conditions are bad. Yeah. Cold, rainy. Well, it was a little rainy down there, but, snow. We'll see. He's been better than last year. I'll say that much. But special teams still not great. Still an issue. But I don't want to get too far into that.
I'm fine with that. Doug next week.
Yeah, and Doug wants this one. I mean, I think it's even more than Carson. I mean, Carson's issues were probably with Doug more than anyone who's still here. I think Doug's issues are probably with people that are still here, meaning the GM and the owner.
Yeah, not the guys on the field, but I'm sure he would want that one. Well, sweet. And it's at the Link, which is, if this game had been at the Link, Carson would have been an even bigger storyline. By the way, this was the Link. I should mention that. This was crazy. I mean, we've seen it now for the last few years, but around the 8:35 mark in the fourth quarter, Washington fans filed out. It had to be 90% Eagles fans. It was like a party the last half of the fourth quarter.
Really?
Unreal.
It was the same way here at work.
I mean, it was a lot of green.
By the way, the Jaguars are up 31-10 on the Chargers in the fourth quarter in LA.
Wow. Well, Herbert's banged up, right? He played?
He's playing. Yeah, he's thrown for 242.
Okay.
Trevor Lawrence is having a really big game, and they're running the ball. So can't take them lightly. I mean, they're a different team. You can't look at them like that. What did they end up, 1-16 last year? 2-15. I think they beat Carson the last day of the season somehow. But Doug has come in, and I think Doug is at his best when he's got a young team, impressionable. They want guidance. They want leadership. They want a new direction, a new culture. And he comes in and does that. And, I mean, he took shambles of that Chip Kelly left after 15 and had him, win a Super Bowl 2 years later. So he's going to turn that thing around, and they're a dangerous team. I really like their defense, and they're playing really well offensively today. So that's not a layup. All
right, you got anything else here?
No, safe travels back. I know.
Thank you. This place, I know you missed it. It's still a dump.
Worst stadium in the NFL?
By far, nothing's close. It's
now that the Astrodome's closed.
I was watching one dude sitting out here. It wasn't even raining. Water was dripping on him. He had a towel on his head. JP Finley, our buddy from NBC Sports Washington, walked by and tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, just so you know, if it starts raining, this is where it normally leaks." And he walks away and he yells back. He's like, "Dave, not joking. Not joking."
Candlestick Park. Did you ever cover a game in Candlestick Park?
I did not.
The playoff game in '96, the one that the 49ers beat the Eagles 14-0. Mark Rippon finished the game at quarterback for the Eagles. It was pouring that day, and that was in the press box. There was no dry spot. We all just got rained on the entire game, and there was no safety. Bill Lyon is like, this all-time legendary Hall of Fame columnist, one of the great columnists ever, and he's sitting there with water just pouring on him. And we all were, and it was don't miss Candlestick.
All right, if you enjoyed the Eagle Eye Podcast, please rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. We'll be back with you Tuesday. For Rube, I'm Dave. This has been Eagle Eye. We'll talk to you soon.